The Black Death killed 50 million people. But what if that was the best thing that ever happened to Europe? What if the Black Death never happened? One plague changed the course of human history. It killed millions. It broke kingdoms. It reshaped labor, power, religion, and the future of Europe. But if it never arrived, the medieval world would have stayed alive much longer. And that means our world might have turned out completely differently. In the 1300s, Europe was crowded, fragile, and deeply tied to feudal life. Most people worked the land. Kings ruled from above, nobles controlled the soil, and peasants had very little freedom. The system was old, heavy, and slow. Then the Black Death arrived and shattered everything. But in this timeline, the plague never comes. No mass death, no empty villages, no sudden collapse. Europe keeps growing under the same old medieval structure. Without the plague, Europe's population keeps rising. More people means more pressure on food, land, and housing. Cities become packed, villages become crowded, and wages stay low because labor is still abundant. In our timeline, the Black Death gave workers more power. So many people had died that labor became valuable. But here, that never happens. Peasants stay trapped longer. Nobles stay stronger. And the old feudal system survives far beyond its natural life. This is the biggest change. Feudalism does not weaken as quickly. The nobles still control the land. The peasants still depend on them. And social mobility remains very limited. That means fewer people rise, fewer cities gain freedom, and fewer new ideas spread quickly. In real history, the plague helped break the old order. Workers became more valuable. Kings slowly gained more centralized power. But without the Black Death, the old system stays intact much longer. A world without the Black Death is a world that changes more slowly. Fewer economic shocks, fewer social revolutions, less pressure to rebuild the whole system. That means the Middle Ages last longer. The Renaissance may still happen, but probably later. Instead of a fast-moving Europe, you get a Europe that stays medieval for centuries longer. Cities would still grow, but differently. Without the plague, there is less room for workers to demand better conditions. Merchants and rulers still fight for influence. But the balance of power leans heavily toward the old elite. Kings may stay weak because feudal nobles remain powerful. Europe becomes more tense, more crowded, and more politically rigid. The Black Death changed how people saw the world. It shook faith, it shook fear, it shook social order. People questioned old systems because the old systems could not explain the disaster. But without the plague, that emotional shock never arrives. Religion remains stable. Old institutions stay trusted longer. And the deep psychological break that opened the door to modern thinking comes much later. The Renaissance was not caused only by the plague, but the plague reshaped Europe in ways that made change easier. Without it, art, science, and exploration still happen, but under stronger medieval traditions. The leap into modernity is delayed. Now imagine the consequences for exploration. If Europe stays more feudal for longer, funding and ambition all change. The age of exploration may still arrive, but slower, more militarized, led by different kingdoms. The world map we know would be redrawn in a far more uneven way. But here is the nightmare version. No plague means no labor shortage. No labor shortage means no peasant power. No peasant power means serfdom never ends. In this world, your ancestors are still tied to the same land in 1850. The Industrial Revolution happens with slave-like labor conditions. No unions, no voting rights, no modern democracy. Europe becomes rich, but freedom never arrives. By the time Europe enters the early modern age, it still carries medieval habits. The nobility remains stronger. The peasantry stays trapped longer. Cities are denser and poorer. Human rights movements, labor rights, and social mobility all emerged later than they did in our timeline. So the Black Death did more than kill millions. It broke an old world open. It weakened feudalism. It changed labor. It forced Europe to evolve. Without it, the medieval world might have survived much longer. And the price of that survival would be a slower, tighter, more controlled civilization. So here is the honest question. Would you trade 50 million lives for your smartphone, your vote, and your freedom? Comment plague if you think the Black Death was necessary. Comment peace if you would rather live in a slower, safer medieval world. Subscribe for more what ifs.